Aloha and good morning, everybody. Happy Aloha Friday. Welcome to our House Economic Development Committee. Today is Friday, February 3rd, at 10 o'clock in room 423. In order for us to allow as many people to testify as possible, there will be a time limit per testifier. Please know that committee members have received and read your written testimony, so if you'd like to stand on your written testimony, that'd be appreciated. We're continuing our hybrid system with Zoom and live testifiers this year, and I'd just like to ask members on the Zoom to please keep your video off and keep yourself muted until your turn to testify, and if you could please turn it off afterwards as well. And please avoid using any profanity and from using any trademarked or copyrighted images in your background. All right, so we'll just get to it. First bill is House Bill 233, relating to a child tax credit, establishes a refundable state child tax credit payable on a monthly basis. First up, we have Department of Taxation.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Nee, and I'm representing the Department of Taxation. The Department of Taxation has submitted testimony with comments. Just want to point out that firstly, we do recommend that we make the credit non-refundable in order to, because as the department finds that refundable credits are more susceptible to fraud. And secondly, the department suggests that the bill specify whether the credit be refunded in a single payment after the taxpayer files their income tax return, or whether the credit will be refunded over a period of 12 months. We just feel that there needs to be more clarification. Thank you. I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you. Next, we have Budget and Finance with comments. They're not scheduled to testify today. We have Children's Action Network Speaks on Zoom. Nicole Wu?
I actually decided to show up in person, so many bills today. I'm Nicole Wu from Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks. Thank you for hearing this bill, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. And I'll just stand on our written testimony in support of this bill.
Thank you. Next, Josh Wish, Holomua Collective.
Hi, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. I will also stand on our testimony in strong support of this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii, on Zoom.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation. I assume we're talking about HB 233?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just warped in from another committee, so I didn't see the previous proceedings. The issue that we have with this one is that we did compare it with the federal IRC Section 24, and we have in our testimony a comparison between that credit and the one that's before you. The basic issue we have is that in Department of Tax is really built to take money in, not give it out, and there are other agencies that we have in state government who are equipped to pay out money to deserving people that would have also the advantage of making sure that the money paid out is used for what you want it to, and because once you pay out cash, it can be then used by the recipient for whatever purposes they want. Thank you very much for your consideration. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Tom. Next, we have Devin Thomas, Hawaii Appleseed, in support.
Chair Holt, Vice Chair Lamosal, I'll make this quick. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. And I just want to skip past the statistics on the child tax credit. Although they are important, the poverty reduction and the massive reduction in food insecurity are commendable, laudable things and considerations that should be taken into account with this bill. I just want to speak to the very real human impact that this credit has on working families and could have for Hawaii's working families. Help working families with kids remain here, help them raise their children with all the necessities that they deserve. And I think that's the ultimate point in this bill. And the reality is that the families simply cannot afford to live here anymore, and it's getting worse every year. So this bill would do very much to help those families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Hawaii Workers Center in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. My name is Sergio Alcobillo. I'm the Executive Director for Hawaii Workers Center, and we stand in strong support of this bill. We would provide additional comments, though, in related to the Department of Taxation. We would prefer that it would be a one-time lump sum payment rather than spread out over 12 months. Just because if you have 2 kids, I have 2 children of my own, but if it's divided over 12 months, 1,000 comes out to about $80 a month, and then 500 is about $40 a month. So it would be more helpful if it came in as a lump sum. But either way, this bill is a step in the right direction. I know it would be a big help to many local families here, especially the ones that need it the most, and especially the ones that our organization serves. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. We have numerous of other organizations and individuals in support. None have indicated they want to testify, but do we have anybody else in person or on Zoom that wishes to testify on this measure? No, seeing none. Members, do we have any questions? Majority Leader.
Thank you. I have a question for Kathy Ni'i from the Department of Taxation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Kathy. I wanted to ask you, just from the department's perspective,
Mhm.
is a single payment or a period over, periodic payments over the 12 months desirable? In terms of ease of distribution.
So as the department wrote in its written testimony, that if the intent is to be refunded over 12 consecutive months, it will be a little bit difficult to administer the provision, both for enforcement and also certification, and also for implementation into our system.
So the one-time payment would be easier to administer?
That's something that we have to, that we were looking into.
Mhm.
Right now, we're not gonna make a definitive statement on that.
Okay.
But we've leaned more towards that according to our testimony.
Okay. Chair, can I ask a follow-up question? So then, on the Land Use Research, the Tax Foundation also mentioned a concern about the $60,000 is dependent on a single individual taxpayer.
Mhm.
So does it make the distinction between whether it's a single married head of household? Do you have any concerns about the language of the current law?
We do. That's one of the reasons why we are looking into the language of the bill. I cannot answer for you, but I can get back to you on that and
Mhm.
with a more specific answer.
Okay.
My apologies.
All right, thank you.
Don't sit down. If I may. Anyway.
Representative Kong.
Oh, thank you, Chair. How much revenue are we looking at for this program? Or revenue loss?
As far as revenue estimates, the department, because we're dealing with so many bills right now, we can provide a revenue estimate. I don't have one on me right now, but I can take it back to the department and we can provide it for you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Sorry.
Thank
you,
you.
Chair.
Any further questions from the members? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to the next measure. We have House Bill 266 relating to the labeling of products. Clarifies that in calculating whether a product labeled Made in Hawaii has met the requirement that at least 51% of the wholesale value of the product is added by manufacture, processing, or production within the state. Operating and overhead expenses incurred and spent within the state shall be included. Operates funds to promote and develop the Made in Hawaii brand. Up first, we have Hawaii Department of Agriculture with comments.
Chairperson Holt, Vice Chair Lamoso, members of the committee. My name is Sharon Hurd on behalf of the Department of Agriculture. Our comment is that we support the economic development piece of this legislation, but the comment is that there's no mention of the enforcement or investigation should there be a complaint. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mark Ritchie in support.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Mark Ritchie from DBED. DBED stands on its written testimony in support, and if here for any questions.
Thank you very much. And we have Tina Yamaki, Retail Merchants of Hawaii, with comments.
Aloha and good morning. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii. We support this intent of the bill, but looking at it closely, our concern is people who make things like cookies going to be considered being made in Hawaii, because we don't make flour here, we don't make sugar here, we don't have butter, shortening and all of these other things that need to be brought in, and especially the smaller local companies, they may not make the 51%, or even coffee. You're going to have 51% in a bag to be considered made in Hawaii, and that's going to drive the cost of Kona coffee in a bag up. You're no longer going to get it for the $6 or $8 that you get it in the convenience stores now or wherever. So we wanted to bring that point up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? Not members who have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next measure. House Bill 337, relating to capital gains, increases the capital gains tax threshold from 7.25% to 9%. Increases the alternative capital gains tax for corporations from 4% to 5%. Applies to tax years beginning after 12/31/2022. First up, Department of Tax.
Hello, the department stands on its testimony with its written comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Nicole Wu, Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee again. Thanks for hearing this bill. I noticed there's a typo in my testimony. I was doing so many for this hearing. I do support, our organization does support this bill. Capital gains are basically wealth. It's profits from sales of investments and stocks and bonds. And Hawaii is one of only 9 states that has a loophole that allows this wealth to be taxed at a lower rate than our income from working. So this bill would help partially close that loophole. According to Department of Taxation and their analysis of individual income, quote, the capital gains are heavily concentrated in the high end of the income distribution, especially for non-residents. The higher the income of taxpayers, the greater the share of capital gains in their taxable income in general. And they go on to show exactly how concentrated it is. In my testimony, I made some charts to make it a little easier for you to see at a glance of how concentrated this income from wealth is for people above $400,000 a year. Also, in past years when we've had this bill, there were some concerns about investment being affected, but other analyses over the years, including people like Warren Buffett, have found that there's no relationship between capital gains rates and investment levels. This bill would raise the maximum capital gains tax rate from 7.25% to 9%, while our income tax goes all the way up to 11%. So this bill partially closes the loophole because it still gives a tax break to those at the very top who have income tax rates above 9%. So we recommend actually amending this bill to just make the capital gains tax rate the same as for regular income, and then that way everyone's just paying their fair share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Jonathan Helton, Grassroots Institute of Hawaii on Zoom.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Jonathan Helton with the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, and we stand on our written comments. Happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next, we have Lindsay Garcia, Hawaii Realtors, in opposition. Not here. Tom Yamachika with comments.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We wanted to point out that the capital gains tax is not simply on stocks and bonds. It can apply to sales of real estate, which is probably why the previous testifier was going to testify, also on the sale of business assets. We did want to point out that the tax increase contemplated by this bill would be also a tax increase on small business because 75% or so of small businesses are organized as partnerships or LLCs, taxed as sole proprietorships, or S corporations. All of those business forms do not, at least not yet, pay tax at the entity level, but its owners pay tax on their respective shares of the entity's business at the individual level. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Devin Thomas, Hawaii Appleseed.
While we support the intent of this bill, we would like to offer comments on the language. Echoing what Nicole Wu was talking about, this bill gives preferential tax, it's an improvement, definitely. At the same time, it is not closing the loophole for the upper tax brackets, and we believe that it's fundamentally unfair to give investment income preferential treatment over income from employment, income that working families are earning. And it's a question of tax fairness for us with this bill. And that is why we would prefer that the capital gains tax be increased to be taxed at the same rate as ordinary income for all of these brackets. And it could provide the state with an ongoing source of dedicated revenue, especially once the surplus runs out, which it will eventually. It is not indefinite. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Evan Owie, NAIOP Hawaii Chapter, in opposition.
Hello, Chair Holt, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Evan Oe, testifying on Zoom today. Sorry about that. But just want to stand on our written comments in opposition to this measure, and we'll be available for any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. We have numerous others testifying, none who said they'll be here in person or on Zoom. Do we have anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? If not, members' questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on. House Bill 398 relating to taxation establishes a refundable job creation income tax credits for employers who increase the number of full-time employees in the state and make certain capital investment expenditures. First, we have Department of Tax with comments.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Department of Taxation submitted comments. We just want to point out that we do recommend making the tax credit non-refundable, as refundable credits are more prone to fraudulent claims. Thank you. I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Chamber of Commerce in support.
Hi, Chair. Thank you for scheduling my bill. This is a high priority for us, but we'll stand on our written testimony and strong support.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Lauren Zerbo, Hawaii Food Industry Association, in support.
Thank you, Chair. Lauren Zerbo on behalf of Hawaii Food Industry Association. This is also a priority bill for us. In the food industry, we are struggling with 30% or higher lack of labor, and it is impacting our ability to serve the community. So we would really appreciate support on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii, with comments.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation. Our comments basically are that the tax system is really there to raise money to keep government rolling, and not necessarily for social policy. We're not really sure what this new credit's going to cost, and you don't know what it's going to cost, and you don't know what you're getting for it. But we do know that there will be a cost, and there will be administrative costs to set this up in the forms of changes to tax forms and instructions, reprogramming, staff training, and other costs that could be massive compared to the amount that may be paid out in credits. So we just wanted to make the committee aware of that. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And we have Victor Lim, Hawaii Restaurant Association, in support.
Hi, good morning, Chair Holt, Vice Chair Lamausa, and members of the committee. The Hawaii Restaurant Association supports the intent of this bill because even though we're out of COVID, the industry is still struggling, and any kind of incentive that you folks can provide to the small businesses to be able to hire people is a big plus for our society and our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members' questions? Majority Leader?
I have a question for the Chamber of Commerce.
Representative.
Hi, my question has to do with the cost to the taxpayers. Is there any estimate from your organization of what the cost might be, or whether, I guess with other tax credits, we have put a cap on the amount that would be allotted, just so that we have some way to budget and plan for it?
Thank you for that question, and appreciate Mr. Yamachika's comment about the cost to the taxpayers. And so that's something we are open to discussing. We understand that it might be a large amount, so the language we have here is just a start, but we'll be more than happy to discuss this with the legislators as to what they see as a manageable or fair amount.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on. To House Bill 400, relating to taxation, establishes an employer-provided or sponsored child care income tax credit for employers that make available child care services to their employees. Establishes an employer child care property income tax credit for the cost of child care property purchased or acquired by an employer and put into service for employer-provided child care. Applies to taxable years after 12/31/2022. First up, Department of Tax.
The Department of Taxation stands on its written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii in support.
Chamber stands on a written testimony and strong support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Tom Yamachika with comments.
Thank you very much, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We did want to make the committee aware that Hawaii already offers a credit to families for dependent care expenses necessary for gainful employment. This is in HRS Section 235-55.6. We are not sure how this proposed credit would dovetail with that. It's certainly being given to different people. This is a credit for the employer. We are just kind of wondering whether the two credits are going to be butting heads in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, do we have any questions from the members? Nope. We'll be moving on to our next measure. House Bill 493, relating to taxation, amends the income tax brackets and credit amounts of the refundable food excise tax credit. First up, Department of Tax.
Department of Taxation stands on its written testimony with comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. BNF said they will not be here. Nicole Wu, Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks.
Aloha again. Thank you for hearing this bill. It's about the food excise tax credit. We know that the excise tax credit is regressive, which means that lower income families pay more of their income to it than higher income families, and that's because lower income families spend almost all of their money that's on things like services and goods and food that are taxed by the GET. So this tax credit was designed in 2007 to get some of that money back to families. When people say we want to get some of the GET on food back to families, that's exactly what this was created for. However, the income eligibility limits have not been increased since 2007. That means, so as families make more money, especially with this inflation that we're having, the Department of Taxation has stated that increasing incomes mean fewer people claim the food excise tax credit over time. Also, the amount that people get in the tax credit has not been updated for inflation since 2015. That's 8 years ago. So this bill would increase the amounts of the tax credit and raise the income eligibility limits so that it catches up to what it was intended for in 2007. It seems like a good time to do that. So thank you for hearing my testimony.
Thank you very much. And Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. What this bill does, in addition to what the previous testifier described, is it greatly increases the complexity of the credit. And we, do have some concerns that if you make this thing more complicated, the people who you really want to take advantage of this won't be able to, because they'll fill in the form wrong, and or not file the form, and then of course 1 year later you're barred, right, under the law of the current statute. So we think a better idea would be basically a bracket relief. The brackets of the income tax law haven't really been changed since the 1960s, at least the lower brackets. So people who are in the or making at the federal poverty line are in the 5th bracket from the bottom, not the bottom bracket, not the second from the bottom, not the third, the 5th bracket. So that is how compressed our bracket structure is, and because, like I said, it hasn't been updated for inflation since for a good 60 years. So we thank you for considering our testimony. We'd be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Appreciate the comments, Tom. I think we're taking up those measures in another bill, but anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? Members, any questions? Seeing none, moving on. House Bill 520, relating to economic development, establishes the Access to Local Food Act to allow cottage food operations to sell cottage food products under certain conditions upon receiving a permit from the Department of Health. And we have Department of Health on Zoom in opposition.
Hi, good morning, Chair Holt, Vice Chair Lamasao, and members of the committee. My name is Erin Miyazaki for the Department of Health and Safety Branch. The department respectfully opposes this bill, and we stand on our written testimony. I'm available to answer any questions that I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Attorney General with comments.
Good morning, Chair Holt, Vice Chair Lamasao. My name is Wade Hargrove. I'm a Deputy Attorney General, and I'm here to provide our comments. This is from the Attorney General's office related to the draft that's before us. The concerns that we shared in the written testimony revolve around the choice of certain words and the apparent intent. So just walking through them briefly, the bill seems to address the concept of a direct-to-consumer sale, which is obviously a term of art in the industry that envisions a restriction on the exposure of the transaction to third parties or intermediaries, and would theoretically restrict that transaction to a direct from the producer of the product to the consumer. And there's just some inconsistency within this current draft. So we would just suggest that that be addressed. The second issue is this bill, as it's drafted, envisions a permitting system, and there's a reference to registration as well. Typically, I mean, registration and permitting are not incompatible, but typically registration is in lieu of a permitting system, whereby folks that are defined in the statute are required to register with an agency, do so for the purposes of putting them on the map, if you will, on the regulatory map, as opposed to applying and having an agency review an application and make an assessment of the criteria being satisfied for the issuance of a permit. So we just bring that to your attention and for your consideration. And the last item is related to the duration of a permit, and just the question being validity. Those are terms that are used frequently in statutes, but an encumbrance can be defined in a multitude of different ways. So we would just invite that maybe that be explored more fully in a subsequent draft. And I will remain and be available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Department of Agriculture with comments.
Holt, Vice Chair Lamoso, members of the committee. The Department of Agriculture supports and aligns testimony with the Department of Health and the AG. Our comment is that this bill does provide for economic development for the agricultural community, and it does provide an additional revenue source. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Hawaii Farm Bureau in support. Not here. Next we have Grassroots Institute of Hawaii with comments.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair and committee members. Jonathan Helton with the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. I just wanted to say there's been a lot of interest in expanding local food production in Hawaii. This bill would be a really good step toward making that happen. And I will add that there's been other states that have adopted similar measures, and anecdotal evidence suggests they haven't seen any big uptick in public safety threats from cottage foods. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
Thank you very much. It's all people signed up to testify. Are there anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members who have any questions?
Sure.
Representative Kong.
Department of Health, please.
Hi, yes.
Okay,
This
thank
is
you very much. As it stands, I cannot literally cook food and feed it to the homeless as it is today unless I get my kitchen certified, correct?
Feeding the homeless needs, the food needs to be prepared in a kitchen that has a permit with our office.
Correct, understood. So would this bill allow me then to do so if I permit and certified?
So this bill would like to expand the foods that is included as part of the homemade food operation. It wants to include certain foods like chicken, the cooking of chicken, starches, and such. So, yes.
Because basically, I do not have a commercial kitchen at my home, is my point, right? Normally, you certify those with commercial kitchens at this moment, correct?
Yes.
So would I even qualify if applied for permit? Not having a commercial kitchen.
There are inquiries from individuals or of the community who do want to convert or, in addition, make their a kitchen on their property a commercial kitchen, and it is possible. But there are certain hurdles to that, which would include, let's say, city and county zoning. So it is possible, but it is there are certain restrictions imposed because it is likely in a residential area.
Oh, understood. No, I agree. But thank you. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? No. We'll be moving on. House Bill 943 relating to the issuance of a special purpose revenue bonds to Honoka'a Land Company LLC authorizes the issuance of special purpose revenue bonds to assist Honoka'a Land Company LLC with acquiring, developing, and renovating agricultural facilities. First up, we have Department of Budget and Finance and Attorney General. Both said they wouldn't be here. And Scott Enright in support.
Chair, Vice Chair, members, Scott Enright for Honoka'a Land Company. Chair, I'd like to stand on my written testimony, but additionally offer one comment. As much as we've had discussion in this building and in our society in Hawaii about growing local food production and doubling local food production, what's missing is the capital to do it. Issuing a SPURB like this to start up agriculture is a way the state can support bringing in the needed capital to grow agriculture. With that, I'll be available for comments, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You might want to stay there. I think we have some questions. I don't think we have any more testimony. Anybody else wanting to testify on this measure? If not, questions, Majority Leader.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Enright, for being here.
Thank you, Rep.
Wanted to ask you, has the governor approved this SPURB? Or, yeah, I guess that's my question.
Where I would go with that, Rep, is previously, in the Iggy administration, this same group of agricultural initiatives was issued a $50 million SPURB.
Okay.
Except with the Trump administration, they were unable to access their federal capital. They sued the Trump administration, they won, and they'll be issued $100 million in EB5 monies to start up.
Okay. Are you aware of HB 1829 that we passed last year? So in order for this SPURB to go through, we need to get the legislature needs to get a request from the governor, and then the legislature needs to pass this bill, two things, before the SPURB can be issued. So I'm just wondering, have you had that conversation about the timing of the governor's request to the legislature?
No, I've not. I had the two
Okay.
ag chairs introduce the bill.
Okay.
But I'm supposed to have dinner with the governor next week. I'll bring it up.
You may want to do that.
I was
you.
unaware of the legislation. Thank you, Rep.
And just for the members on the committee, it had to do with the issuing of the SPURBs will impact the private activity bonds that are allocated to the state, and the priority that was set last year was to focus on the building of affordable housing.
Yes.
So that allows the state to tap into and leverage our low-income housing tax credits. So there's some history here, and we ought to be talking to each other.
Certainly. I had a meeting with Louis Olivera from Budget and Finance about this, so he's aware and,
Thank you.
and agrees.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rep.
So just for your information, in Lewis's testimony, he does say what Majority Leader is saying, that last year's act we passed states that, quote, unless requested by the governor and approved by the legislature, no SPURBs required an allocation shall be blah, blah, blah. So
Good
Thank
luck
you.
next week.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to House Bill 1027, relating to Money Transmitter Modernization Act, and description is too long, so we'll just get into the testimony. We have just one testifier, Iris Ikeda, DCCA.
Thank you, Chair, for hearing this administration bill. My name is Iris Ikeda, and I'm the Commissioner for the Division of Financial Institutions, part of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. So, of course, we strongly support this. Really, the essence of the amendments are, even though it's a long bill, is to look to or implement the financial condition section of the Model Act that's hopefully being implemented throughout the nation. Right now, our current law does not really protect consumers if there was a money transmitter that would fail. The current capital needed to open a money transmitter license in Hawaii is $1,000. Totally inadequate if you know anything about money transmission. So this will increase that amount to what we call tangible net income, and raise the bonding requirements. And just for your information, these amendments were made in consultation and agreement with the industry. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's the only testimony we have. Anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to House Bill 1259, relating to the direct shipping of liquor, allows direct shipment of all forms of liquor rather than just wine by certain licensees. Requires the county liquor commissions to adopt rules. First up, we have Big Island Brew House in support in Zoom. Okay, how about Lanikai Brewing in support in person? Nope. Jenna Matila, Wine Institute, with comments?
Hi, we're going to send our testimony.
Thank you very much. We have Ola Brewing Corporation in support.
Aloha. My name is Na'ihalani Breland. I'm the president of Ola Brew, and I stand on my written testimony in strong support. I also just wanted to say, in addition, that this bill would not interfere with the local distribution of products. This is mainly for export. And then I also wanted to just kind of star asterisk one of my points in my written testimony, that this has the potential to actually diversify the revenue streams. As we've been talking as a state that, we're really reliant on tourism right now, and this could be potentially an export. Thank you so much, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. And we also have Sam DeWitt, Brewers Association, in support on Zoom.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sam DeWitt, State Government Affairs Manager for the Brewers Association, a 501c6 national trade association dedicated to promoting and protecting America's small and independent craft brewers, their beers, and the growing community of enthusiastic beer drinkers. I'm testifying today in support of HB 1259, a bill that will allow consumers wider variety and brewers in the islands to grow their businesses. This bill is good for small and independent breweries, good for consumers, and good for Hawaii. I urge you to vote yes. Consumers want more variety from more producers, whether those products come from in-state or out of state. Hawaii is one of many states where direct-to-consumer, also known as D2C, shipping of wine is permitted, but shipping of beer is not. This is unfair to the state's 26 breweries and consumers who want their beers. You can fix this oversight with the passage of HB 1259. We understand the importance of strong regulations on beer. D2C shipping legislation must incorporate appropriate, proven safeguards, the kind which are already in place for wine shipments. These include regulatory oversight in the form of licenses that must be renewed, guardrails to avoid abuse like mandatory ID checks, and conspicuous packaging, as well as mechanisms to protect state revenues. HB 1259 checks all these boxes. Consumers want to purchase to-go beverages to enjoy. D2C offers Hawaii's breweries a chance to share their local product with the world. It's time to let customers of the legal drinking age purchase the beers they want from the brewers they love. Allowing Hawaii brands to expand their business by shipping directly to consumers on the mainland is pro-consumer and smart economic policy. I urge a yes vote on HB 1259. Thank you for your time and your service, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? Members, do we have any questions? I have a question for the Brewers Association. It's my understanding that if we pass this measure, we'll be allowed to ship beer to the other states that have laws to receive it. Do you know how many states that includes?
Yeah, it's currently 12 states. By way of comparison, it's 47 states, I believe, where you can ship wine in and out. So currently 12 states, Hawaii would be the
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? No. Now we'll be moving on to the next measure, House Bill 1362, relating to pass-through entity taxation, authorizes certain entities to elect to pay Hawaii income tax at the entity level through pass-through entities. First up, we have Department of Taxation.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The department stands on its written testimony. We would like to note that in our reading of this bill, it does require significant tax form and system implementation. And so we do ask that the effective date be amended to no earlier than January 1st, 2025. I will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Ryan Churchill, Pacific Rim Land in support on Zoom. Next, Grassroots Institute of Hawaii with comments on Zoom.
Jonathan Helton, Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. Thank you again so much, the chair and committee members. Just want to stand on our written testimony.
Thank you very much. Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation. Let me give you, I guess, a brief explanation of what this bill does. And we're really talking about federal tax here because the Federal Internal Revenue Code caps the state and local tax deduction for individuals at $10,000 between 2018 and 2025. It applies to any SALT liability, including tax on income received from a partnership or S corporation. It causes the most hardship in states with higher income tax rates, and we I believe, are the second highest in that regard. In response, several states enacted laws designed to provide individuals a workaround in that if the mechanism by this bill is enacted, the tax is paid at the entity level, and there's no $10,000 limit there. And the IRS has released guidance in 2020 saying that this works. This is not going to create a problem for state tax because under HRS 235-2.4K, we did not adopt the $10,000 limit that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act enacted. So it's not going to affect us at all, and it's basically going to only impact what goes to the federal government. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. And we have Sandy Wong, Dowling Company, in support. Okay, that's all the testifiers. Anybody else wishing to testify on this measure?
Yes, Ryan Churchill, sorry, I was waiting to get let in with Pacific Rim Land, testifying in support, and stand on my written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, members? Nope. Moving on to our last measure, House Bill 1483, relating to the general excise tax, reduces and eliminates the general excise tax for the sale of groceries that are eligible under the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program or Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children over a 4-year period. Reduces and eliminates the general excise tax for the sale of non-prescription drugs, medical supplies, and durable medical equipment over a 4-year period. First up, Department of Taxation.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Department of Taxation submitted written testimony with comments, and we just want to note that, that this bill, in our reading, will cause there to be dual rates on returns for fiscal year taxpayers. And so, because of that, the implementation, we ask that the bill begin no later than January 1st, 2024. Thank you. I'll be available for any comments.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Helton, Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, with comments.
Thank you so much, Chair, committee members. Jonathan Helton, Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. We'd stand on our written testimony, and I would just point out that the general excise tax, especially as applies to food, in this case groceries, does disproportionately fall on low and middle income families and individuals. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Tom Yamachika, Tax Foundation of Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We will stand on a written testimony, be available for questions.
Thank you. And Kendo Matsuyoshi, Local Food Coalition.
Aloha, Chair Holt, Vice Chair Lamasa, and members of the committee. Kendo Matsuyoshi on behalf of the Local Food Coalition. We'll stand on a written testimony in support of the measure, specifically as it relates to the reduction and elimination of the GET on food. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to testify on this measure?
Hi, Lauren Zerbel on behalf of Hawaii Food Industry Association. I believe we submitted testimony. I see it in there. We are in strong support of this measure. We really believe that this measure is something that would help the middle class. Hawaii is one of only a handful of states that taxes groceries at the full rate of sales tax, and all of these other states have found a way to run their budgets without taxing groceries. And these are non-prepared food items, so it truly is regressive to tax these items because people actually need this to live, and lower income individuals spend a much higher percentage of their income on groceries than higher income individuals. There's really kind of a lack of data on, I know the talking point has been thrown around that a lot of this money might go to tourists or wealthy people, but we don't really know what percent of actual SNAP eligible groceries are being purchased by tourists and extremely wealthy people. My hunch would be that they're probably buying prepared food items. But it would, even if we could just do a tax holidays, considering that we have such a large surplus this year, we think that would really be helpful in generating some of the data that would be helpful to kind of back up whether or not this is a good thing to do holistically for the tax code. But the majority of other states have kind of analyzed what taxes are the most regressive, and they've come to the conclusion that taxing groceries is very regressive, hurts the middle class, hurts food security. There's a recent study that just came out from Cornell that there's a percent, every percent you reduce taxes on groceries, you increase food security by that same percent. So that's pretty powerful information, especially considering we have such a big problem with food security in this state. So thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to testify on this measure? Members, any questions? Representative Kong.
Oh man, who should I call? Lauren, you're my favorite.
I knew you were going to do that.
Okay, so this bill, we don't pay the consumer or user of the SNAP program. They don't pay a GE tax,
That's
correct?
correct, yeah.
So this bill will actually benefit the business itself, correct? Not necessarily the consumer.
No, the tax is paid by the consumer directly. So when you go to the grocery store and you get your receipt, you'll see on there that 4.71% is added on to your bill, and that is tax money. Yeah.
No, it's not. Here's a receipt.
Yeah.
From a SNAP constituent.
Oh, yeah. I know SNAP they don't pay taxes on groceries.
Correct. So the
if
business
you're SNAP
pays
eligible individual. So that's very low income people that
correct.
That for a small amount of time qualify for SNAP.
So
but we're talking about expanding that exemption
okay.
to the entire population, which would include and help middle income and low income people that do not qualify for SNAP.
I love the idea, but the chair knows we deferred my bill of tax transparency. But
well, I didn't have anything to do with that.
Right. But who pays the GE tax? It is shown on the receipt, right? That the consumer assumes that they pay it. But it's actually the business that pays the GE tax.
So yeah, when you shop pretty much anywhere, it's called a pass-through. So basically what the business does is they hold the money and then they pay it to the government. That's
correct.
Usually how
On their
taxes
gross
work.
earnings, regardless they make profit or what, all the expenses. So, just for the audience and maybe the committee know, I've been a small businessman for 25 years. So now I'm a politician. So I'm looking at things from two sides of the coin. There's a difference. Okay, so the business pays the 4.5% to the government, GE tax, on our gross sales. The business considers this as an expense because we pay the lease, we pay energy, we pay whatever, right? Labor. At the end of the day, whether we make a profit or not, we still pay the GE tax on our gross sales. Now, in a sales tax, we have a GE tax system. Not
Representative, did you have a question?
Okay, sorry, Chair. My question is, does a consumer actually benefit by eliminating the GE tax?
Yes, because they wouldn't be paying an extra 4.71% on their grocery bill because the business would not be taxing them.
Sorry,
Same as the
Chair.
receipt
That's
you're
why
showing for
I
the
went
SNAP.
through that rigmarole. That's not true. Because you cannot control my pricing. I don't have to pay the GE.
It's possible. I mean, you could make that argument for literally anything. But at the same time, it's a very competitive industry. And that's why the margins are so low in grocery, because there are so many options for people to buy their groceries.
Okay.
And that's sort of how the free market works.
So let's go to your competition, right? You go to your supermarket. you notice, okay, in this case, aspirin, right? Because we're talking about medicines over the counter. You don't, you go to a store, you pay 4.10, let's say a bottle of aspirin, $10. You go to the checkout, $10.
But you could also buy the off-brand for less
But-
money, and that sort of drives down the
So
price of the name brand.
exactly.
And that's sort of how our
So
economy
why
works.
would competition be? Because if I go to a supermarket, right, it's obviously more expensive than the drugstore, right, for these products. More than
Depends.
likely.
I mean,
Representative, I think you guys fundamentally disagree, and I don't think anything's going to change with this argument. So I
But
think if we
I
could
just
move
wanna
forward, I'd
know
appreciate
why
it.
She feels that the consumer benefits and not it's the business that benefits.
You guys can discuss this later. No vote's fine.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
And with
Thank you,
that, do
Chair.
have any further questions from the members? All right, we'll recess for decision making. And we're back for decision making on our 10 o'clock agenda. So first up, we have House Bill 233 relating to child tax credit. For this measure, we will be defecting the date to June 30th, 3000, and moving it on to our next committee. Members, do we have any questions or concerns? Seeing none, House Bill 233 with amendments. Vice Chair.
Members, we are now voting on HB 233. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Member Hasib Burdick, excuse. Member Kong.
Aye.
Member Nakamura.
Aye.
Member Quinlan.
Aye.
Member Pierick.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Next, we have House Bill 266 relating to the labeling of products. This is the Made in Hawaii bill. We have some clarification to do with it's a companion bill to one of the Senate measures. So we're going to be deferring this bill, and we'll schedule it on one of our agendas next week for decision making. Next, we have House Bill 337 relating to capital gains. With this measure, we're going to be moving it out with a defective date of June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions or concerns? Representative Pierick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just the concern that it increases capital gains tax, and after meeting with my constituents, the goal is to decrease taxes, so I'll be voting no.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
Members, we are now voting on HB 337. The recommendation from the chair is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the excused absences of Member Hasib Burdick and the no vote from Representative Elijah Pierick. Are there any noes, other noes?
No vote.
No vote from Rep. Kong. Anyone voting with reservations? No reservations. All other members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Moving on to House Bill 398 relating to taxation. Same recommendation. We're going to be defecting this date to June 30th, 3000. We would also like to mention in the committee report that it's not intended to have an open-ended tax credit for this measure. So we would like the next committee to look at possibly putting a limit or a cap on this measure. So with that, any questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair, HB 398 with amendments.
We're voting on HB 398. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the excused absence of Member Hasib Burdick. Anyone voting no? Anyone voting with reservations? All other members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 400 relating to taxation. This measure, we're also going to be moving out with the defective date of June 30, 3000. Members, any questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
You're now voting on HB 400. The recommendation is passed with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the excused absence of Member Hasib Burdick. Anyone voting no? No. Anyone voting with reservations? All other members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to House Bill 493, relating to taxation, amends income brackets. This measure, we're also going to be defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
Members, we are now voting on HB 493. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the excused absence of Member Hasib Burdick. Anyone voting no? Anyone voting with reservations? All other members voting aye, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next one, House Bill 520 relating to economic development. They're noting some concerns. We will be moving this measure onto the next committee with a defective date of June 30th, 3000. Questions, concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair, House Bill 520 with amendments.
We're now voting on HB 520. The recommendation is passed with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Member Hasi Burdick. Anyone voting no? Anyone? No one? No. Noting the no vote from Representative Kong. Anyone else voting no? Okay. Anyone voting with reservations? All other members vote aye, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Next, we're moving on to House Bill 943, relating to the issuance of special purpose revenue bonds to Honoka'a Land Company, LLC. Now that we're all on the same page and know what, we're waiting for that governor's message, but we will be moving this measure on to the next committee with a defective date of June 30, 3000. Questions, concerns from the members? Seeing none, Vice Chair, 943 with amendments.
We are voting on HB 943. The recommendation is passed with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Member Hasi Burdick. Anyone voting no? Anyone voting with reservations?
Here.
Reservations from Representative Nakamura. All other members vote aye, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. On to the next measure, House Bill 1027, relating to Money Transmitter Modernization Act. Very robust testimony for this measure, but we'll be moving it forward with a defective date of June 30th, 3000. Any questions, concerns from the members? If not, Vice Chair, House Bill 1027 with amendments.
We're now voting on HB 1027. The recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Member Hasi Burdick. Anyone voting no? Anyone voting with reservations? All other members vote aye, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Next measure, House Bill 1259, relating to the direct shipping of liquor. We will also be moving this measure on with a defective date of June 30th, 3000. Do we have any questions or concerns from the members? Seeing none, Vice Chair, HB 1259 with amendments.
We're now voting on HB 1259. The recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Member Hasi Burdick. Anyone voting no? Anyone voting with reservations? All other members vote aye, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
And House Bill 1362, relating to a pass-through entity taxation. Recommendation to pass with amendments of a defective date of June 30th, 3000. Questions or concerns from the members? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
We're now voting on HB 1362. The recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Member Hasi Burdick. Anyone voting no? Anyone voting with reservations? All other members vote aye, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. And House Bill 1483, relating to the general excise tax. We have a little bit of work to do on this measure. The term medical supplies is used but not defined in the bill, so we will be taking some time to work with the introducer and the administration to figure out how we'll define medical supplies, and we will be rescheduling this measure on one of our agendas next week. So defer HB 1483 for now, and that finishes our agenda. We are adjourned.